You disgust me. You're only good for scrubbing toilets, you wicked maid. That's what my daughter-in-law screamed at me in front of everyone. Her parents, my son, his sister, a dozen friends. She said it like it was the most natural thing in the world, like I was some invisible janitor who dared sit at her dinner table. I didn't flinch, I didn't cry, I just smiled. Because what Amanda didn't know, and what everyone was about to find out, was that she'd just humiliated the woman who owned the very house she was parading around like a queen. And that smile, it wasn't out of politeness, it was because the mailman was 15 minutes away, carrying a letter that would knock her right off her throne. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about 3 years of being erased, of being reduced to a silent shadow in the home I paid for, of being treated like I didn't matter. And on that Saturday afternoon, with my dignity on the line and every eye in the room watching, I decided enough was enough. Amanda wanted war. She was about to get a reckoning. I should have said no the moment Ethan suggested I move in. It's only temporary, Mom, he said, voice soft on the phone, just until you figure things out. It was right after Charles died. 42 years of marriage, and then gone just like that. The house felt like a museum of ghosts, every corner echoing with memories too loud to ignore. So when my son offered me a space in his new home, the one he shared with his ambitious, spotless wife, Ava, I thought maybe this could be a fresh start. Ava smiled, why'd the day I moved in all teeth and charm. Of course, Evelyn. Family takes care of family. She even helped me unpack. That was the last time she touched one of my boxes. Within a week, my favorite recliner, the one I nursed Charles in after his surgeries, was banished to the garage. Doesn't fit the aesthetic, Ava chirped. We're going for minimalist modern. My framed photos disappeared, next replaced by abstract prints of things no one could name. The ceramic owl collection Charles gave me for every anniversary, boxed up and tucked away like clutter. When I asked about them, she said, they don't photograph well for social media. Then came the passive-aggressive comments. She's sweet, but she has so much stuff, I overheard Ava say on the phone. It's like living in a thrift store. Ethan laughed. That laugh stung more than anything. I raised him, I sacrificed, and now he chuckled while his wife erased every trace of my life from their home. They had friends over every weekend, colleagues from Ava's office, couples from their gym neighbors who drove luxury SUVs and wore coordinated casuals. I cooked, I cleaned, I stayed out of the way. I wasn't asked to join, I wasn't introduced. And when I did step into the living room, someone always found a way to gently guide me back to the kitchen. You're such a help, Evelyn, they'd say. You're so good at organizing. That was code for stay invisible. One time I overheard Ava telling someone it's nice to have built-in housekeeping. She's always doing laundry or vacuuming. It gives her purpose. I wasn't a person, I was a utility. And Ethan, he said nothing, always quiet, always conveniently unaware. When I finally brought it up, he rubbed the back of his neck and mumbled, she's just under a lot of stress, Mom. The promotion, the house payments, try not to take it personally. Easy for him to say he got to keep his office, his space, his voice. I got a 10x10 room down the hall and the job of ghost caretaker. Then came the day of Ava's infamous family brunch. It was to celebrate Ethan's new position, some corporate speak title I didn't understand, but that came with a raise and more of Ava's Instagram-worthy dinnerware. I spent the morning slicing fruit, setting up trays, and arranging flowers. I ironed my best blouse, the one Charles always said, made my eyes shine, and walked into the living room just before guests arrived. Ava's eyes flicked to me, my outfit, my presence, and then to her perfectly set table. Oh, she said tightly, I thought you were going to rest today. I wanted to be part of the celebration, I replied, smiling. It's a big day for Ethan. She blinked once slowly like she'd just discovered a roach on her marble countertop. Right. The brunch began. Her parents arrived, first dripping pearls and passive judgment. Then came Ethan's sister and her husband, then friends, then colleagues. 12 people, 24 mimosas, and exactly 0 invitations for me to sit down. I hovered near the kitchen waiting for anyone to notice. When I brought out the apple pie Ethan loved, Charles's old recipe, Ava's mother commented, must be nice to have someone doing all the chores for you. Ava didn't miss a beat. Oh, Evelyn's amazing. She keeps the house so clean and organized. She said it like I was the housekeeper, like she was proud of how obedient I'd become. Then her father raised his glass. It's nice when everyone knows their place. That's when something cracked inside me. Not loudly, not visibly, but undeniably. I set down the pie server and looked around the table at Ava's smug little grin, at Ethan's downward stare, at the way no one said a word in my defense. I do know my place, I said quietly. Ava's head snapped to me. She could tell the air had shifted. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. Of course you do. And we appreciate how helpful you've been. Helpful, like I was a tool. I looked at Ethan. His jaw was tight, but he said nothing. So I tested it. Maybe I should go back to the kitchen. Maybe I should disappear so the adults can enjoy themselves. That's when Ava's facade cracked. You're being dramatic, Evelyn, she hissed. No one said you disgust me. She leaned in closer, her voice venom soft. You're only good for cleaning this house, you wicked little maid. The room went silent, frozen. I heard the clock ticking, the AC humming, my own breath slowing. 12 faces stared, some shocked, some embarrassed, some suddenly understanding everything. And I smiled, not because I forgave her, but because I knew what she didn't. 15 minutes, that's how long it would take for the mailman to arrive. 15 minutes until this wicked maid reminded them all whose name was on the deed. Amanda laughed light and dismissive as I opened the front door 15 minutes after her poisonous remark. Behind me, laughter and chatter drifted in from the dining room, but everything went slack when the postman arrived. He held a thick registered envelope. Mrs. Evelyn Harper, he asked, and I nodded, heart steady. I signed the electronic pad, took the envelope, and closed the door. Amanda's voice, tense and brittle, floated through the crack. What was that? I didn't answer. Instead, I stood just inside the entrance hall, the envelope cradled like a lifeline. 3 years of erosion, of displacement, of erasure had come to this. Turning back toward the dining room, the letter's weight in my hand seemed to silence the world. Guests were frozen mid-conversation forks, poised above untouched plates. The muted clinking of glassware echoed in suspended disbelief. Faces that had once looked through me now looked at me. With measured steps, I returned to the table holding the envelope in plain sight. Amanda's smile flickered. Ethan's eyes widened. The room was heavy with anticipation. Everything all right? Mom, Ethan asked, his voice cracking between confusion and concern. Perfect, I replied calm and clear. I laid the envelope down next to my untouched slice of pie, one I'd brought from home, baked in memory of my late husband. I opened it. Inside were official notarized documents, the deed to the house. It had always been in my name, my gift, my responsibility held with cautious foresight. Now, after her assaults and erasures, the truth was out. Amanda's face drained of color. She whispered, "What about the house?" Her voice wavered on the edge of collapse. I held up the deed, the seal, imprinted name, undeniable. It belongs to me. I never transferred ownership. The air snapped taut. Gasps murmured around the table. Amanda stumbled back, shock giving way to panic. You can't be serious. We've been living here. Her voice cracked. Yes, I said softly, but legally this has always been my home. In that moment, the power shifted. The woman who had been cast aside, disrespected, unseen, stood framed by the truth, the homeowner, the anchor, the one wronged. Amanda stood frozen, lips parted, like she was still searching for a rebuttal that didn't exist. She looked around the room, desperate for an ally. Her father shifted uncomfortably. Her mother, red-faced, reached for her purse. Everyone, please, don't be dramatic, Amanda said, sharply, voice pitching high. This isn't a soap opera. But no one laughed. You've been lying, she accused, jabbing a trembling finger toward me. This whole time, you've been playing this sick game, pretending to be a poor little widow while sitting on that deed. I met her gaze. I wasn't pretending. I am a widow. I just didn't think I had to defend my existence in the house I bought for my son. She turned to Ethan, hands flying in disbelief. You're just going to let her do this? Throw us out. But Ethan didn't speak. Not at first. Instead, he sat down, shoulders, heavy eyes locked on the document in front of him. Why didn't you tell me, he asked, voice raw. Why hide it? Because I wanted to see what kind of man you were without knowing the safety net was still there, I answered. It was the first time Ethan truly looked ashamed, not annoyed, not inconvenienced, but ashamed. Amanda tried again. You can't just kick us out. We've lived here for 3 years. You don't have a lease, I said plainly. You're guests. The word hit harder than I expected. A gasp escaped from Ava's friend on the far end of the table. Amanda scoffed. This is unbelievable. No, What's unbelievable, I said, is how you treated me for 3 years, thinking I was under your roof, as if that gave you permission to erase me. Amanda's mother stood slowly. We should go, I think. We've overstayed. No one leaves, Amanda barked. You need to hear this. You all need to understand what kind of manipulative. Enough, Ethan said suddenly. Amanda stopped mid-sentence. This is her house, he continued, slowly standing. She paid for it. She let us live here, and we treated her like a burden. I treated her like a burden. The silence was immediate, crushing. You let me, I said quietly. You let your wife replace everything I brought into this house. You stood by while she humiliated me. Not just tonight, every night. His face crumbled. I know, I'm sorry. Amanda, however, wasn't done. This is emotional blackmail, she sneered. What do you want, applause? You want us on our knees. I held up a hand. I want respect, and I want honesty. Amanda snorted. Well, here's honesty. I never liked you. You're old, outdated, and you made me feel like a guest in my own marriage. I didn't react, but her words hit the table like knives. Ethan flinched. Amanda. No, she continued, voice rising. She played the victim while holding all the power she wanted us to fail, so she could swoop in and say, I told you so. I wanted to belong, I said simply. I wanted to sit at this table like a member of the family, not the staff. Amanda laughed bitterly. Well, congratulations. Now everyone knows you're the queen. No, I replied. Now everyone knows I've been silent for too long. The guests began excusing themselves, murmuring apologies as they made their way toward the door. Amanda didn't stop them. She just stood there, breathing heavily, alone, in her crumbling fantasy. Ethan looked at me, voice small. What happens now? I looked at the deed. That depends on whether you're willing to rebuild this family or pack. Once the last guest slipped out the door, clutching a purse, a coat, a reason to flee. Silence flooded the house. The same dining room that moments earlier had buzzed with small talk and clinking glasses now felt like the aftermath of a tornado. Dishes sat half-eaten napkins, stained wine glasses tipped just slightly as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Amanda stood near the table, arms crossed, staring blankly at the deed. Her perfect posture wilted under its weight. Ethan paced behind her, eyes flicking from me to the front door like he wished he could run but knew he couldn't. So what now? Amanda asked, her voice brittle and small. I waited, let the question hang. What do you want from us? She added this time, with a crack of vulnerability that hadn't existed before. It was a question I'd spent weeks preparing for. Months, even. What did I want? Revenge. Numbered or dominance? Not really. What I wanted more than anything was to not be erased. I finally answered, I want peace in my own home. I want to be treated like a person, not a relic you're tolerating. Amanda looked away. I want to be included, I continued, in family meals, in holidays, and decisions about the house I still own. I want respect, not out of guilt, but out of recognition for what I've done. And if we can't do that, she asked softly, then you have 30 days to find another place to live, I said, calm and certain. Amanda blinked. You're serious? I nodded. You've had 3 years to build a family with me. You chose control instead. Now I'm giving you one last chance to do it right. Ethan stopped pacing. You'd really evict us. Yes, because this is my home, Ethan, and I refuse to keep living in it like a stranger. Amanda sat down. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't look like a woman holding the upper hand. She looked like someone who finally understood what power really was and how little of it she'd ever actually had. And the money, Ethan asked quietly, the mortgage payments we thought we were making, they've been going into a savings account, I replied. Every cent. I wanted you to feel the responsibility of ownership, but I also wanted you to build good habits and prove that you valued what you had. Amanda's mouth parted slightly. So, the money's still there. I nodded. But only if you choose to stay and be family, not just play house. She sat back, processing, calculating. You said we have a choice, she said. What if we want to start over? Really start over? I folded my hands. Then things have to change, starting now. Amanda didn't argue. She didn't stomp or whine. She simply nodded. And that was the first real opportunity we'd ever had, not just to coexist, but to begin again. 3 days passed. 3 days where Amanda barely left the bedroom and Ethan couldn't look me in the eye without flinching. I didn't say much. I cooked dinner, watered the garden, swept the back porch, the same chores I'd done for years. But the weight was different now, because this time I wasn't doing them to earn my place. I was doing them because it was my place. The psychological shift was subtle but seismic. On the fourth morning, Amanda entered the kitchen in sweatpants and a faded university sweatshirt. No makeup, no earrings, just her. She hesitated in the doorway like she wasn't sure if she belonged there anymore. "Can I help with breakfast?" she asked. I handed her a whisk. She didn't talk much, just scrambled the eggs quietly while I buttered toast and sliced oranges. But for the first time, she stood beside me like a partner, not a supervisor. Later that evening, she knocked on my door. "I'm planning a dinner next weekend," she said. "One of Ethan's clients. Would you would you like to join us or help?" I looked up from my novel. "Whose house will it be in?" She smiled, a tiny real one. "Yours." I nodded, then yes, I'd love to. That dinner marked the beginning of a new pattern. Amanda asked my opinion about wine pairings, table arrangements, menu selections. She even let me choose the flowers, tulips, and rosemary from my garden, not the overpriced boutique florals she used to insist on. And when the guests arrived, she introduced me as Ethan's mother and the woman who made this beautiful home possible. That line wasn't rehearsed, I could tell. She said it with weight, with intention, like she was offering a public olive branch. Later, when one of the guests complimented the pie, she didn't claim credit. She turned to me and said, "Evelyn makes the best crust. It's her recipe. No one touches it." I nearly cried. Ethan, for his part, was slower in his transformation, but no less sincere. It started with small things, refilling my tea without being asked, pausing in the hall to ask how my day was, bringing in the newspaper like his father used to. One night we sat on the back porch, just the two of us. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked, not accusatory, just hurt. "Because I needed to know if you'd treat me with love when you thought I needed you, not just when you thought you needed me." He nodded, shame flickering across his face. "I let you down." "Yes," I said simply, "but you're showing up now. That matters." In the weeks that followed, I watched both of them stumble, backslide, and catch themselves. Amanda still reached for control sometimes, but she'd stop, rethink, ask instead of demand, include instead of exclude. The biggest test came 2 months later. Amanda walked into the living room while I was watering my violets. She looked nervous, uncertain, like someone approaching a lion cage. "I'm pregnant," she blurted, "and I want you to be part of our baby's life, not like before." "For real?" I blinked. "You sure that's what you want?" She nodded. "I've been terrible, I know that. But I don't want our child to grow up thinking family is something you control. I want them to see it's something you earn." I put down the watering can and crossed the room, placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let's earn it together." 6 months after Amanda's cruelest words, I stood at the center of my kitchen stirring stew in the pot Charles bought me on our 25th anniversary, while Amanda set the table and Ethan folded napkins beside her. No one told me to step aside. No one whispered behind my back. No one accidentally forgot to invite me. This was my house, and for the first time in years, it felt like mine. I looked around the room. The reading chair that had once been exiled to the garage now sat proudly by the living room window. My ceramic owl collection, once deemed clutter, lined the mantel beside Amanda's scented candles. My wedding photo with Charles was finally back on the hallway wall. But more than the furniture, it was the people that had changed. Amanda no longer hovered with that tight smile and clenched jaw. She moved with ease, with humility. She had even started cooking with me on weekends, asking questions like a student instead of issuing orders like a CEO. Ethan had shifted too. He no longer avoided hard conversations. In fact, he initiated them. One evening, we sat by the garden watching the wind ripple through the rosemary I'd planted years ago. He turned to me and said, "I'm sorry for every time I stayed silent." And then he added, "Thank you for never giving up on me." That meant more than anything, because for 3 years, I had considered giving up, not just on them, but on myself. I'd let myself be boxed into the role of housekeeper, old-fashioned in the way. I'd believed for a time that maybe I was too much, too present, too traditional, too inconvenient. But the truth is, I had been teaching them what love looked like all along, through every pie I baked, every sock I folded, every insult I swallowed. And when the moment came to stand up for myself, I didn't scream, I didn't plot revenge, I just told the truth and let the truth speak for me. I reclaimed not only my home, but my dignity, my voice, my worth. And somehow in doing that, I gave Amanda and Ethan a second chance they didn't even know they needed. They'd started to see me not as a relic of their past, but as an anchor to their future. The woman who raised their son, the woman who would now be their child's grandmother. When Amanda finally gave birth, she asked if I would be in the delivery room. I nearly wept, not from flattery, but from belonging. That baby, that tiny new heartbeat changed everything, not because she forced us to be a family, but because she reminded us why family matters. One night, I held her in the rocking chair Charles built, and Amanda sat beside me, quiet, humbled. "She's lucky to have you," she whispered. I looked down at my granddaughter's sleeping face and smiled. "No," I said, "we're lucky to have each other." Dignity isn't something you beg, for it's something you claim. For years, I thought I had to be quiet to be accepted, that if I just gave enough, helped enough, stayed small enough, people would see my value. But they didn't, because people rarely value what they believe they control. I learned that setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary, that standing up for yourself doesn't mean tearing others down, and that silence, while noble in the right moment, can become a prison if it goes on too long. When I finally chose to speak, to reveal the truth and draw the line, it wasn't about revenge. It was about restoring balance, about saying, I matter, my story matters, and I will no longer be erased. Sometimes the greatest power comes not from shouting, but from standing firm and letting others feel the weight of their choices. Respect isn't requested, it's expected. If you're an older parent or in law feeling sidelined, hear this. You have nothing to prove. Your history, your love, your sacrifices, they are enough. You don't need to fight with venom or bitterness, but you do need to stop accepting treatment that diminishes your humanity. Whether you live with family or not, your space, physical and emotional, deserves respect. Start by drawing one small boundary, then another. Speak your truth without apology. And if you've given generously, don't be afraid to let the weight of your generosity speak for itself. Sometimes it takes a moment of crisis to shake a household into clarity, but it only takes you to reclaim your worth.